I wanted to ask you that because I know
Yeah.
this Mr. Shubhendu looks like Indian name, and therefore I wanted to ask you again. But
Yeah,
really,
so
it's nice.
Yeah, आई पाचगणीची आहे, right? I mean,
Okay.
नंदूचे
आम्ही
वडील
सगळे
सारखे.
प्रॉपरली पाचगणीचे आहोत.
Right,
आमचं
right.
मूळ गाव आमचं वाल्लं, पुण्याजवळचं.
अरे वा.
आणि मग तिथे ऍक्च्युली पाचगणी आमच्या आजोबांचं गाव, आणि शुभेंदूची मम्मी आणि माझे वडील आणि त्यांचे सगळे भाऊ बंध सगळे पाचगणीत आहेत.
ओके ओके ओके.
हा, सो पाचगणीमध्ये आमचं ऍक्च्युली काय म्हणायचं ह्याचा आजोळ आणि माझं ऍक्च्युली या वडिलांचं गाव, आणि तिथं घर पण आहे आमचं. आणि तिथून मग आम्ही सगळे पुण्यामध्ये, बाहेरच्या देशांमध्ये वगैरे सगळे स्विच झालेलो, म्हणजे खूप जण आम्ही बाहेरच आहोत इंडियाच्या बऱ्यापैकी. आणि शुभेंदूची बहीण ऍक्च्युली शी इज ऑल्सो लाईक शी इज अन आर्किटेक्ट. शी डिड M.Tech from Spain, and she's also working with the government of India, right? On some
she's working on a smart city project in Delhi, and with lockdown she's stuck in Delhi right now.
Okay. Yeah. Right. It's really great to know all these things. So,
yes, sir. Please continue. So the YouTube link is getting live, and I'm gonna share it very quickly. And we are still on time. It's just 2 o'clock.
Yeah. We're in the right time now. Yeah. Shubhendu then might be knowing our institute in Sangli, which was established by the late Dr. Vasantrao Dada Patil, who was the 3 times Chief Minister of Maharashtra. And then he was also ex-governor of Rajasthan. And he laid the foundation stone of our institute in 1983. And with the objective or the motive to impart this engineering education to rural youth, and to set up or to develop that area by establishing new industries, to train them as an entrepreneur, and then they will definitely set up their own businesses in that area, and then the development will take place. And that decision, when it took to start this private engineering institutes, that has really helped Maharashtra to lead India in industrial, you can say, production. Almost 35 to 40% of GDP is contributed by Maharashtra, and through these all industries. So Maharashtra is one of the leading state in India, and I am proud that you're from Maharashtra. And so this is the motive when we started this institute. And since 1983 till today, see, we made many alumni of our own institute, which are spread all over the world, and they're working at very, very high posts. And I'm very proud that Nandu is also one of our alumni, and he has got connected to us, to many of the experts spread throughout the world. So our alumni strength is very, very good. We are having very good faculty at our institute. Our students are performing very nicely nowadays. Last 1.5 years or 2 years, we are really going as per the developments which are taking place in education field as well as technological field. We're giving more stress on innovation. We have set up our innovation council, which is recognized by Government of India. We are working with the Government of India for Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. We're working with Government of Maharashtra for Unnat Maharashtra Abhiyan. So we are taking part in all developmental schemes which are announced by government. And one of our institute is one of the oldest institute in Maharashtra, and therefore we got the chance because of our performance in earlier days. We have completed MBA, and for the next cycle of MBA accreditation to all other branches: mechanical engineering, instrumentation engineering, civil engineering, and other branches. So the performance of the students is also really noticeably increased as far as the academics is concerned, as well as the co-curricular activities are concerned. For example, the competitions like hackathon, then Ignited Innovators of India, then the competitions organized by industries, John Deere and SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, India. So many of our students are participating and they are really securing top positions in competitions. So there is a good potential in our students. They can definitely work very nicely if they're guided further. And that is why we are organizing these webinars and we are trying to collect or bring you on this platform and have some discussions with our students so that they can get some idea and they can design their own career plans. They can develop the interests in one or the other topic and they can really go ahead into those topics and they can talk with you, they can communicate with you and inform. And therefore, this is the arrangement is done for this webinars, and I really very much uh, really happy and thankful to you for joining us. And this will definitely create a good network amongst us, and we can help our students because we are really placed in rural area, and you know that's people are deprived of many things, even though they have good potential, good talent, they are deprived of many things, and that's what happens in every country. And therefore, we are trying to give them good platform. We are trying to
Yeah.
give them good directions, and so that they can think on their own and design, come out with a good career plans. Because what of the feedback from alumni, what we got when we talk with our alumni, they always tell that if you learn in Pvpit, then he will learn. He will not. He will get. He will not have any problems when he goes anywhere in the world. That is how the its education system is here, and we're affiliated to now Technological University, Maharashtra State Technological University, that is located in Lonere. So which is very likely to autonomous institutes, and they're coming with very new plans. They're changing the syllabi every 3 years. They're bringing in new courses. They're uh, bringing new technology. There's online courses substituting the face-to-face education. So they are very, you can say, fast in adapting to changes, and therefore that advantage we are getting of connecting with this technological university. So students really need some guidance, and therefore this type of webinars have been arranged. I hope uh, you will definitely love to talk with our students and you'll
Yeah.
guide them in their further endeavors. Or you can, as you are now very close relative of ours now, it is, uh, it will be very, we can develop some kind of collaborations, or we can have some continuous relationship as far as this give and take of knowledge is concerned, which will definitely help our students. And we can work as a mentor or for many of the students or us for faculty members, guide them in embedded systems to take ahead. Because now developed, we have formed a robotics club in our institute, and we are having a tie-up with IIT Mumbai for this robotic club, E-Yantra Lab. So our students are participating in national level competitions, and really they are going good in those competitions. So that is how we are helping, we are supporting the students to take part in national competitions. We are giving them all kind of support. So in this case, if you could guide further then it will again take a good shape, and really it will be helpful for our students. So I hope you are now in India or in Netherlands.
No, I'm right now in Netherlands, and I'm working from home due to the pandemic. We all are working from home, and this is my bedroom where I'm working since already 2.5 months now. Thanks to the
Okay.
profession, it's easier to for us. It's easy to work from home. The salary doesn't stop. We can keep developing. And actually, firstly, let me thank all of you to give me this opportunity. It's a great, as I said before we started, this is a great initiative. And all of the things that you said are really important to arouse curiosity for students, because what will help them in life is their curiosity and passion. and it helped me. So it's not important to study just for your job. It is not good to study just so that you can earn some money. It is important that you enjoy that work and that you have passion to serve. And India needs that now. Actually,
Yeah.
right now in India, the conversation is Atmanirbhar Bharat. So we do need students that are really focused in their work and can develop ideas and initiatives on their own. And this is a great initiative. So, and
Yeah.
I'm very humbled. I'm actually but a very mediocre student and a mediocre engineer, but I happen to be blessed that I got a chance to do my masters, and so far I have a career of like 7 8 years. So I'm going to share my experience, and I hope that that experience helps them. But it's just to manage expectations. It's not like I'm a uh, in embedded systems expert. I just happen to learn everything step by step, and I'm still learning. There's still so much to learn. So that's what I'm going to do. Just share my experience, and then I can yeah, help to the best of my knowledge questions from students.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you, Shubhendu. Thank you, Principal Sir. I just wanted to mention there is actually our guest speaker who is going to be speaking on Monday. So he wanted to join this session, and I wanted to welcome him. He's from Malaysia. So Dr. Ahmad Suhaisi Matsu.
Yeah.
Ahmad, can you hear me? Ahmad.
Yes, can you hear me? Everyone?
Yes. So he is actually Ahmad Suhaisi, Dr. Ahmad Suhaisi Matsu. He works for University Putra, Malaysia, for agriculture technology. And he was once upon my colleague from
Yes.
McGill University, Dr. Adam Chuck's lab, and we actually have some publications in common. We did a lot of work in common. He does a lot of work with the drones right now. He has a lot of publications in Malaysia already, and so he wanted to attend this session, probably as I mentioned, because we do, from agriculture point of view, we do some work in embedded systems. We need a lot of sensors and a lot of machines that talk with each other to collect some information about soil and crops, and that's why he wanted to attend this session. Am I right, Ahmad?
Yes,
Yeah.
looking forward for sharing
Welcome.
session.
Yes.
Yeah.
So our principal sir
Welcome,
is
ma'am.
here.
Yeah.
Yes, and then I will reintroduce you
Tomorrow.
again on Monday. So
Yeah,
now, so now I will just like to
Let's start.
I will actually ask our HOD sir to introduce our department, and then he will actually ask our today's colleague Rajendra More to introduce the guest to everyone, and then the guest speaker can start his session. So
Yes.
dear HOD sir, are you around?
Yes.
Yes. So thank you. I'm muting my mic.
Yeah, me too.
So I started working as a HOD Instrumentation Engineering Department, Pvpit BUDHGAON. So our department our college is established in the 1983. So the instrumentation branch is there. So instrumentation is a multidisciplinary branch. So this is related with the measurement and controls. And as this is multidisciplinary, so it's having the vast areas of the controls and automation. So we also having the more than 2,000 alumni who are working around the globe. So these are the general information. Okay, thank you. Now I have to request Maurice sir to give the introduction of the today's guest.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. May I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am very glad to introduce a great knowledgeable personality, Mr. Shubhendu Sinha, sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome on the behalf of Student Development Program organized by Instrumentation Department, Pvpit BUDHGAON, Sangli. Here, Shubhendu, sir, born and brought up in Pune. He completed his Bachelor of Engineering in ANTC from Pune University. In year 2009, he completed his Masters in Embedded System from Indonesian University of Technology, Netherlands. After completion of his Masters, he worked as a researcher from year 2012 to 2016, 4 years, in same Indonesian University, Netherlands. And the topic on composable and practicable multiprocessor system. Okay. After this, from year 2016, he started working as a software engineer in Indonesian University, again Netherlands. Simultaneously, until 2018, as a part of uh, consultancy, he worked on various embedded projects. And from year 2018 to till now, he's working as a senior software engineer in Signify Philips Lightning, Netherlands. Okay. Along with this, he has number of skills in electronics and software field. Apart from this technical background, he has great interest in human mind and body also. He is a keen student of participation in yoga and meditation. He also a yoga instructor. He also works uh, for 5 years as a volunteer for disaster and humanitarian relief, uh, which is organized or that is Ananda Marg University Relief Team Pune branch. Okay. Thus, with this, I conclude my this brief introduction. This versatile personality, Mr. Shubhendu Sinha, sir. We are very happy, sir. You have to with us now, and now everyone be ready for the interactive session. That is embedded systems in IoT with programming careers and abroad. So welcome Shubhendu Sinha, sir, once again, and thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, so shall I start my slides? So basically, I have a slides as my presentation, and I hope Dr. Nand Kishore, he can help me with the questions. I cannot see them right now, but he can pinpoint. So I have divided my talk in 3 parts, and we can take a break after each part, and in that before that break, we can also take questions on that part. So let me know if I can start.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. Let me share my screen. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes, it's there.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the topic that I got from Dr. Nand Kishore, and it's a very fancy title, but I will help to the best of my knowledge. And so I divided it into 3 parts. My master's experience, the basics of IoT and industrial programming. So it's not that I focused on IoT just because I liked IoT. It happens to be that I started working for Philips Lighting, which has a product Philips Hue, and that is an IoT ecosystem. So I learned about IoT on the job, on the fly. So it's not like I aimed for this, but it's still valuable learning. And in fact, it's what this century is about. It's all about IoT, computers talking to each other. So let me start with my first part, my master's experience. It's very useful, I think, for the students. So how did I happen to reach Netherlands? And actually, my background, I am a very curious student, but I'm not a studious student. So, and you can see that in 12th, I got 88%, which is not a lot. And actually, I knew that I will not be able to join IITs and NITs. So actually, I did have an urge to study for higher education, but I knew I didn't have chance in India because it would be too tough. In fact, I also prepared for AIEEE, but I think I didn't get a good score. But then it so happened that I learned about Netherlands from my friend, whose sister actually studied in Netherlands, and he also studied in Netherlands. He's 1 year senior to me, and a master's course in Europe was very interesting. There's also at that time many students were going to the US for masters, but for me US was not very appealing. And in fact, for cultural reasons, and in fact, if you have seen the news, you know what's happening in US right now. It's the racism in US is much more than in Europe, and that's why I knew if I have to do masters, I would try for Europe. And actually, I got my admission in Eindhoven University. So this is actually a picture of this is a map of Netherlands. And Netherlands is surrounded by sea, and on the bottom there's Belgium, and on the right side there's Germany, and it's actually a very small country. and Eindhoven is near Belgium, and this is where I'm right now. So maybe a brief note about Netherlands. It's a small country. It will actually, it's like roughly 300 kilometers by 200 kilometers. It will actually fit between Mumbai, Aurangabad, and Kolhapur. If you drag Netherlands on the map on Maharashtra, you see that it's actually not a big country. But despite the fact that it's big, it's a small country, it is the second largest exporter of food in the world. I'm the first one in the US, but the USA is 270 times bigger than Netherlands. And that's amazing. And that's because of the fact that Netherlands, the people here are very efficient, and they have a lot of low land. So there are no mountains. Literally, there are no mountains. The highest mountain is maybe only 300 meters high. It's mostly a flat country. And that's one thing. The other thing is Netherlands is home to some of the biggest firm in the world. Philips, of course, is the hometown. Hometown is Eindhoven. So if you know, Tata Nagar was founded by Tata. Similarly, Eindhoven city was founded by Philips. So Philips started producing lights 150 years ago, and that's where the factory started in Eindhoven, and that's how Eindhoven grew as a city. And Philips actually is still big, but it was even bigger like 30 years ago. And from there, it split into multiple small companies. So ASML actually was a spin-off from Philips, and right now it is the largest lithography machine maker in the world. So if you know chips, IC chips, all the IC chips in the world, 95% of them are made by machines that are produced by ASML. So it's actually everybody knows about iPhone and Apple and Samsung, that they are the biggest companies in the world. But both Apple and Samsung solely rely on ASML to manufacture chips. So all the memory chips, IC chips are manufactured by ASML. I worked in ASML for a year, and NXP is also spin-off from Philips, and they are specialized in NFC, RFID, and auto systems. There I did my master's project. And all of them are in Eindhoven. So Eindhoven is like the Silicon Valley of Netherlands. Of course, there are other big companies like Unilever, Shell. Shell is the petroleum company, ABN AMRO Bank, ING Bank. All of these, they have a big place in Netherlands. And some other curious things to know, that Netherlands are the tallest people in the world. And that's partly because of their genes, but also because they cycle a lot. And they are, as I said, they are the largest exporter of food in the world. They also produce a lot of dairy. Yeah, so the last thing is, they have more cycles than its population. So the population is like 17 million, but there are more than 20 million cycles in Netherlands. So that's just some trivia. But Netherlands, the people are very straightforward. They speak directly. They don't waste time in trying to please you or so. It's a very direct culture. I mean, it's a big contrast to Indian culture, where we have a lot of hierarchy, and that's not true here. So in fact, my professor in master's course, I used to call him Professor Hank, but he used to tell me, call me Hank, not Professor. So the culture is very different. And for me, it would be very difficult to call him Hank. It's like, who would call your professor just by his first name? But that's the culture here. And it's not bad culture. It's basically, people are simple. They don't want artificial respect. They just want to be just good friends with you, and they just want to be direct with you. So just to summarize my master's experience, all the courses were based on practical assignments and projects. So except for the ones that require mathematics, then you had much more sort of a written exam. But otherwise, it was mostly practical assignments. So throughout the semester, you do assignments, and the assignments are graded. And at the end, there is an oral exam. So what is possible is that you can just copy the assignment. So if the assignment is do this work and write a report, what you can do is just do the assignment, write the code by copying it from somebody else. But then you will not get understanding of what the assignment was about. And then in the oral exam, they will try to catch that, okay, have you understood the concept? So unlike bachelors, where I remember just doing ratta of all the work, and then just writing the exam, doesn't help. So that's a very different thing than Indian courses. Although I do not know about MTech, maybe MTech in India is similar, but here masters really focused on assignments and projects. And of course, you have to write a report, and there you don't write a report like an essay, you write a report to the point, and those skills I learned here, and they are useful throughout your life. So that was very helpful. And in the end, I graduated with 8 out of 10 score. So I did pretty well, and I was happy with it. And after this, actually, I did research in the same university. I wanted to do a PhD. So that's what the 4 years that were mentioned in my biography as a researcher. I was aiming for a PhD, but that's one of the failures that it's not a full failure. So I did my research, and then when the PhD contract expired, I had a choice to return to India or work here. And if I return to India, writing the PhD thesis would have been harder. So I thought, okay, what I'll do is I'll take a job here and then write my thesis. And I tried that, but I was married at that time, and we had a baby. So then I thought writing a thesis only on weekends. So Monday to Friday you're working on your job. You have to be focused on your job, and on weekends you're writing your thesis. That didn't work out for me. So after 1 year, so in 2017, I decided, what's the point? I'm just wasting my time. It's a lot of work. But the thing is that I learned from my research did not go waste. So that is still useful in my regular work. It's just that I don't have a degree now. So, but that's fine. I learned from my mistake, and it's not a mistake. It's just that you have to try. It's like you try your best, and I learned from it. So I still see that as a very useful experience. And in fact, in industry here, they don't have a high regard for PhD. They really see you for your skills. So that's why the skills are more important, not the degree. So that's what I learned. So some information for students. So what was required for my master's? So firstly, mostly you would do a master's in English. You will not do a master's in German language. And if you're doing a master's in English, you need to get a TOEFL or IELTS certificate. So TOEFL is a test for English language, a test of English as a foreign language. And IELTS is some similar exam. So I had given both of them, and I got a good score. So English knowledge is important. You need to speak, not speak, but at least you need to understand the English grammar well, because you are going to write reports, you're going to write papers. So English is important. So that's why it makes sense. You need to prepare for these exams and get a decent score. Then often many universities ask for GPA, and GPA is the relative score among in the university, relative score among other students. And that is, I remember Pune University would not give GPA at that time, but it's like you can just compute it yourself and take a signature from your principal, and that's it. That's good enough. And for masters, they also asked me the list of subjects. So they want to know, what did you study for your bachelor's, and accordingly they will judge if you're suitable for the masters. And our Indian bachelor programs have a very good range of subjects, so they are really they work fine. So that was not a problem. For the US, GRE exam is necessary, but not for the European universities. Many European universities, they don't really ask for GRE. Maybe some of them do, but the ones that I knew, they did not ask for GRE. So now the question, how to fund your masters? Netherlands, Sweden are some of the costly countries, and the fees are double right now. So right now the fees are like 16,000 euros per year. That is like 13 lakh rupees per year. So 26 lakh rupees for a master's and 7 lakhs for the living cost. So for a 2 years master in Netherlands, the cost is around 40 lakh rupees. That's a lot. At my time, it was 20 lakhs rupees, and that's really a lot. But that's just what the country is. That's how it is right now. But unlike Netherlands, Germany, France, Spain have much lower fees. I mean, it's like 1/3 or even 1/4 of these fees. So because most of the universities in Germany, France, and Spain are government funded, and in Netherlands, the funding is not so much. So it's mostly, it's based on the fees. So what are the options then to pay for these fees? So there are a lot of scholarships, and it's just that you do not know of them immediately. So every country has different number of scholarships, so you need to check for them. And the important thing is to look for them and apply, because it's not that the scholarship solely relies on your good score. So of course, scores are important. That's why you need to study hard. But it also, because you are from India, which is considered like a third world country, there are many different requirements. So it may be the case that even though you don't have the perfect score, you can still qualify for some scholarship. And I know many of my friends that I got to in Eindhoven, they got scholarships. Unfortunately, I didn't get one. But then my family could afford to pay in installments. Yeah, so that's the second option, that actually you can just fund yourself, and then you can pay in installments. And to pay in installments, you can take a loan in India or a loan in destination country. So something, this fourth option is really amazing. I do not know if Germany and other countries have it, but in Netherlands, I know a lot of my friends, they got a loan from an Dutch bank, and they were allowed to pay it back after they got a job, after their masters. So they don't have, I don't think they were asked for a reliability. And it worked out very well. So they got the loan from the bank, they did the masters, then they got a job, and within a few years they could pay back the loan. And why? Because actually an engineer salary is very good in European countries. So for example, in Netherlands, for master's graduates, it's around 2,000 to 3,000 euros per month. That's the gross salary. But in your bank, you would get 1,500 euros, or for the higher end, 2,400 euros net, which is very good. So, I mean, even if you have a very nice apartment and you enjoy good food, even if you do all of that, you can still save around 400 to 500 euros a month. That's approximately 32,000 or 40,000 rupees per month. So it can work well. But this is just about Netherlands. But if you talk about entire Europe, there are more options and there are more possibilities. You just have to try your best. So that's why I say in conclusion that firstly you have to study hard, because the more you study hard, the higher grades you get, the better chance you have for scholarship. And but that's not the end of the story. You have to still keep looking for the other options. So that's why if you Google and you see that there's this scholarship, you just try and you just send your email with your documents and you will get the reply. So it works out. So you just have to keep looking for it. But what is really important is that you should have the passion. And in fact, the passion is also asked for. So I maybe missed a point. One of the point is they will ask you for the SOP, which is where you describe why do you want to do the masters. And it is a bit of formality, but the person who is reading it will clearly find out if he's just doing it for fun or is he serious about it. So it's important that you are clear, why do you want to do your masters. Yeah, so something that Dr. Nandkishore mentioned, that I'm a keen student of yoga, and it really helped me in my past 11 years here. So of those 11 years, 6 years I was living alone, and 2014 I got married. And it's not that living alone is difficult, but then you are here without your family, and there are often a lot of stress, work stress, physical stress. There are different problems. But overall, I think yoga helped me a lot. And it's not like for example, my friends, a lot of my friends, they are not as serious about yoga, and they are mentally strong. But what yoga does give you is, it's not just good for your physical health, but also for your mental and spiritual health, which is very important, for a happy life, but also to stay focused in your life. So that is something that I really appreciate. And actually, as I was told before, I also teach yoga here. So now that I have a 1-year-old daughter, I am not taking yoga classes. But since a year before, I used to take yoga lessons in gym here. And people really are curious and they like to learn yoga. So they are more, I think, curious about yoga than Indians, themselves. And why is yoga so important? It's because the word yoga doesn't mean just asanas. Asanas are physical exercises, but yoga also means, having a vegetarian diet, meditation, and social service. Social service is also important because of two reasons. It helps the society, of course, but it also humbles you, because when you see the other suffering people, you understand that you are very privileged. And helping them, humbles your mind, which helps your own progress. So a humble mind is very important for your own progress, and that's really crucial. And how did it happen that I am learning yoga and teaching yoga? Because my father was a yoga teacher, and his guru and also my guru, Sri Anand Murthy, he founded Anand Marg in 55. And this organization is working since 55 with two goals: self-realization, that is Atma Gyan, and Seva, that is service to humanity. So I, even today, to this day, I try to help. So because I'm in Eindhoven, I cannot physically help, but I try to help in other ways with the social work. And with Corona crisis, also a lot of projects are going on. The lockdown was really hard on Indian economy and Indian labor, when we are trying different ways to help them. But overall, it's important for students to keep in mind that the whole world knows about this, and if Indians themselves ignore this part, they are just going to go in this loop where they keep striving harder and struggle in their life and go in a bad spot. So there's no need. We have such a beautiful philosophy which is going to which is helping so many people, so they should really also keep an eye on it. uh, of course you can ignore it, but then in the end you will face problems. Life is not that easy, but with yoga you get a way to tackle the ups and downs in your life. So it's also an important aspect of your life. So that's the end of my first part. Here I did not mention so much about careers, because in the end uh, it's also important what you are looking for. And nowadays with LinkedIn, it's so easy to look up for careers, uh, your desired career. And the first thing is to understand what do you want to do, and if it's masters, then you should focus on that. So I'm actually open for questions now. If you guys have if you have questions about masters, then I can help now.
So thank you, Shubhendu. Can you hear me? I think my
Yeah, I
mic is
can hear
on.
you.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
So thank you. Actually, it was a nice part that you shared, like in the first one third of the session. Let me actually go back to the faculty from my department. Karade sir and Magdum sir and Sutar sir, do we have any questions? Is there any questions coming from the students in terms of who want to pursue their career in Europe? So or yourself, if you have any questions, would you like to ask, or should we take like a 5 minutes break, because Shubhendu actually wants to take a 5 minutes break at his end, and then maybe we can come back in 5 minutes. So you can, it's your call, HOD, Instru, and faculties from Instru.
I think everybody's muted, so that's why we cannot hear them.
Yes, Shubhendu, can I request you to stop sharing the screen?
Oh yes, sorry. Okay.
Just for a minute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There is actually one question. It's from someone, Unmesh Patil. His question is, Shubhendu, how much amount of scholarship students can get for their master's degree?
Okay. That's a good question. I think if I remember, most of the scholarship actually provide full scholarship, so for the entire fees. But there were some scholarship that only supported half. But on the other hand, some were also so that, for example, actually I didn't mention this. There are also scholarship options where the company gives the scholarship, and then they ask you that you have to work for them for 3 years, something like this. So you have to look for it. But there were scholarships that indeed supported only half of your fees, and the other half you have to fund yourself. And there are also scholarships that do full funding. So that's what I remember.
Okay, I hope Unmesh Patil sir,
Yeah.
you got your answer. There's one more question actually coming from the Yahoo chat. I can see it from my end. Why you choose only Netherlands for your masters? Is there any special facilities for IoTs?
Yeah, that's also a good question. Actually, again, something based on spirituality. I didn't think too much. In fact, I didn't even know about Netherlands before I started my masters. I didn't know that European culture is much different than US, and I knew that uh, that uh, that that European people have a different outlook. But I didn't know specifically about Netherlands. And from my friend who did study in Netherlands, uh, I only heard good things about it. And okay, now the second question is about IoT. Yes, IoT is actually like a very fancy term, but basically it depends on your application. And in Netherlands, there are so many companies that are working on applications that revolve around IoT. So there are ample of opportunities. Of course, a lot depends on the economy. Netherlands economy has been doing well. So I'm not sure about this year and next year because of Corona, how it will impact. But there are a lot of companies uh, that require engineers that are expert with embedded systems and yeah, IoT, aspects related to IoT. Um, so let me give an example. Like there's a company here, I'm forgetting the name, but they are the ones who make electric charging for electric cars. So, like Tesla and there's so many cars in the world that are electric, they require charging. And this company makes fast chargers for these autos. And oh, I remember the name now, it's ABB. So ABB is a company that now makes these chargers, and that's a big company. Similarly, uh, there are more companies here that make buses and trains, and those companies also require a lot of embedded knowledge, IoT. There's Thales from France, which makes RFID chips for buses. So in Netherlands and in France also, and I think yes, in most of the European countries, you hardly pay cash in the bus. So when you enter the bus and train, you just swipe your card and the money is deducted. That's basically just electronic payment, and that's all is just automated. It's the currency is not involved, and that's RFID. It is connected to servers, so it is also an example of an IoT. So there are ample of opportunities for IoT in Netherlands and in Germany and France.
Thank you. I think Sudhar sir wanted to ask a question. Thank you, Shubhendu.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the students asked one question. Her name is Mayuri Koli. Why they choose only Netherlands for masters? Is there any special facility for IoT and all?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think just
Hello, it is
that
already
answer,
answered.
the question has
Yes,
been
yes.
already answered. So
Yes.
there's one more question. Who can get scholarship and what is the criteria to get it? Can students' performance during UG help them in this regard?
Yeah, so as I said, the scholarship requirements actually differ very, according to the scholarship that you are looking at. So there are a lot of scholarship programs that are coming from the European funding, from the government funding, from company funding, and they each have different requirements. But what is important is, of course, your BE score, your undergraduate score. So of course, it's important that you have a good score. And also your SOP, as I mentioned, SOP is your essay. Why do you want to do the masters? So it's not the most important thing, but it is important because it may be the case that even though you do not have good scores, you can still make a convincing case. That helps a little bit with your masters. And it also matters where are you coming from in India. So I remember that there are some scholarship programs that are eager to help poor students. So I don't know how they decide that, but there must be some economic criteria. So there are different criteria. So I do not remember by heart. You have to just Google for it. And but I'm saying there are ample of opportunities. So just because you couldn't find the right one in one day, don't give up. You have to keep looking. I remember I was busy with this process for like 3-4 months until I got my admission. Yeah. I see
Okay.
there's in the chat window, there is one question. How does the MS in US compare with MS in Netherlands? So Netherlands, I think the fees are comparable, but the most important thing is culture. So here, the culture is quite open. There is racism in Netherlands, but it's very low. So compared to US, I think that's a great thing that the Dutch people are really open, and there are a lot of Indians here. And not just that, actually, Netherlands were sailors just like the British. So the Netherlands actually, unlike, I don't know, British, I think British and French people, they are not that apologetic. But Netherlands, they know that they ruled half of the world, and that was not the right thing to do. So they are actually a bit open to other people, and that's one of the things that they are really proud of, that they are open. Uh, so cultural wise, I think it's a big benefit. The other thing is salary in Netherlands, as I just showed, master salary is something like 2 to 3,000 euros per month. In US, you will start getting 4,000, $5,000 per month salary. Uh, but uh, but then the US work culture is also very different. I know some of my friends who did masters in US and are now working. They work from 7 a.m. in the morning till 7 p.m. at night. And in Europe, and especially in Netherlands, the work and home balance is very well. Here people strictly work mostly from like 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. So after 6 p.m., they go to the families, they spend time with the families, and even if there are deadlines and their work, they manage it very well. So they're very managing deadlines and timelines, but they do not sacrifice their family life just for the work. So that's a very big difference compared with the US. US is very focused on your work and money. Here the life is a bit relaxed. You can take up a job that you like, and you can spend time with your family also.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay, sir, you wanted to have any questions, sir? Principal,
Yes.
sir?
Yes, sir. Hello, Shubhendu, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I want to ask the question that for instrumentation engineer graduates, so which are the different areas? Suppose you want to plan for MS, so in Netherlands, so you can going to be select that areas for MS.
Uh, so there are many areas, uh, and I think, for example, the IoT, as I said, it's a fancy name, but 10 years ago, when I was doing masters, and that name is still valid now, the name was cyber physical systems. So there were a lot of courses around cyber physical systems, and instrumentation is a major part of it, because if you cannot measure data, you cannot really do much without that. So instrumentation is just part of it, but the bigger picture is cyber physical systems, which is like another name for IoT. uh, but if you just go on the university website, like for example, Technical University of Eindhoven, the website is TUE.nl, and there, when you go to the master's program, you will see that there are a number of courses with different, perspectives. So you have to choose which perspectives suit best for you. Uh, but uh, that doesn't mean that you will get the job also in the same category. Jobs depend on companies, and companies have their own aspirations. There are a lot of embedded systems companies here. Uh, but when you specifically talk about the instrumentation, there might be fewer companies. So you cannot restrict your scope to only a part of the system. And besides that, actually, a good engineer, like I'm learning now, you have to learn all parts of the system, because in the end, the product requires you to debug and work out all the details of the product. So you cannot just stick to one part of cyber physical systems.
Yeah, thank you.
I see another question. Scope for civil engineers directly take employment with degree in engineering. Uh, I don't. I'm not sure if I understand the question, but if you're talking about civil engineers, Netherlands uh, has a lot of scope for civil engineers, but you have to look up details. I'm not expert in it, but I know that here architecture and constructions are important. Netherlands is one of the countries that has the best construction. So, a fun fact: Netherlands is actually 2/3 of the country is below sea level. So it's literally below sea level, which means all of the ocean water could have drowned Netherlands already like 100 years ago. But that is not the case. And why? Because Netherlands has constructed dams and a series of construction systems that manage water to and fro. They have constructed various reservoirs which are like buffers for the water. So they have, in fact, the Indian government has asked the Dutch government to help with their, agricultural projects. So Dutch engineers, even with constructions, are the best. So there, I'm sure there are plenty of courses and plenty of opportunities in civil engineering, but you have to just choose the course accordingly. And a great thing about Netherlands is there are a lot of English courses. So even if Germany is great with all of these things, but there would be very fewer English courses in Germany. You would find much more German courses for the same field. Yeah,
Okay,
so
Shubhendu, thank you so much. I hope Professor Nagendra, you got the answer. I think it's you, right, who asked the question. So the time is actually flying, like we are almost like around 2:51. So I recommend, Shubhendu, you probably take a break of 5 minutes and then, here if anyone else from the faculties, they want to discuss something, maybe they can do it, like, or maybe everyone takes a break in 5 minutes. And right now on my end, the time is 2:51 p.m. So maybe you'll be back like by 2:56 p.m. Okay, so I don't know what's the time there. Probably it should be like around 10:51 p.m. or something, or it's
yeah, it's 11:21.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I will be back in 5 minutes. I just need to maybe get a glass of water. That's all.
Yes, thank you. Excuse
So
us,
I will.
excuses everyone. So
I will
you
not.
gonna
I will not leave the call. I'll just keep the call alive. That's
yes,
fine.
please. And can you just mention what you're gonna talk in the next part
Yes,
before you leave? Yes.
it's basics of IoT. And as I said, I'm not expert in IoT, but I work on Philips Hue, which is actually a part of IoT. So going to use Philips Hue product as a case study for IoT. Okay.
Yes.
So actually, wait. I didn't share my screen. That's how you couldn't look at it.
Yes.
So
Yes, please.
sorry.
Just
So
just
you see the screen?
just share it and then just take a break of 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I'll
Excuse
be
us,
back in
everyone.
5 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello, I'm back.
Yes. Is everyone back? Before actually we move to the next topic, there was one more question by one of our professor faculty on the YouTube chat. Like roughly what percentage of students get scholarship during their masters? If you actually have any information about this, and if you would like to share, Shubhendu.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I'm not sure about it, but in my friend circle, because that's what I know about. Let me think. So like roughly, let's say if I in my like 10 or 15 students during my times, I think one third of them had scholarships. So that's not the most accurate information because it's only my friend circle. But I remember at least one third of them had scholarships. But also keep in mind that some of them even got scholarship after they started their masters. So what happened was some industrial programs came up, like ASML actually. They started giving scholarships, saying that okay, we will fund your masters, but you have to work for us. And that of course is like a win-win situation. But maybe there were only like two or three students that I know, friends I know, that they got that scholarship. Uh, so I think like one third of the students at that time had scholarships. That's what I know.
Fair enough. I hope Professor S.R. Patil actually, who asked this question, got the answer. And there's one more question, like, probably this was answered by you before, but I'll just like, throw it again. It's like, does Netherlands provide any more scholarships to outside candidates who are willing to pursue PhD?
Actually, a PhD is like a job here. So you get your salary if you're doing PhD. You have to qualify for it. It's like a job interview. And if they think you can, do the research work, yeah, you get that project and they pay you. It's not like an industrial salary, but it's a very decent salary. Like for me, it was 2,000 euros per month. So that's
So
how
it's
it is.
like a stipend. So it's like a
Yes,
stipend, but it's
yes,
like, it's matching the industry kind of, the entry level industry salaries.
yeah, yeah.
There's one more question. What is the job potential for masters in Netherlands as compared to US and UK? I think you answered that before, right?
Yeah, so I do not know about the US. US is a big country, and different cities have different job markets. But Netherlands has a lot of engineering jobs, and they do not have enough Dutch people for this job, so they are open to other people working. So actually, I did my master's here, and that's why I'm also doing my job here. But also half of the Indian population I know, they did not do masters over here. They came here just to do their job, and some of them, not some, but most of them through consultancy like Tata or Accenture, IBM. Uh, so they came from the Indian IT market, uh, but some of them also are directly doing a job here.
Okay, I just had one last question and then we'll jump to the IoT section. So my question is, do you speak actually the language they speak in Netherlands? I think it's Dutch, right? Like German.
Yes, it's Dutch. Yeah,
And
I do speak Dutch a
okay,
little bit.
so is it like, is it kind of compulsive to actually learn that language, like when you're actually working in industry, or you can manage it with English?
You can manage with English, and that's the great thing about Netherlands. That's actually one of the things that I liked about it, is that here almost everybody speaks English, and here they don't have this ego about their language. So they like in France, French is really a big thing. In Netherlands, yeah, if you can try to speak Dutch, they are happy about it, but they don't really like make fun of you or really have any issues that you are not speaking Dutch. So they are really open about it. Um, of course, all the Dutch people only speak in Dutch mostly, but then in Philips, in ESML, in all these technical companies, almost a lot of meetings are in English. Everybody is fluent in English. In industry, English is the language. Dutch is only within Dutch people, but that's a great thing about Netherlands. English is really de facto, and in fact, the English. So I mean, the Dutch speak much better English than German and French, because Germany and France, the companies employees would only speak their own language. They don't speak English as much. But here in Netherlands, everybody speaks English.
Thank you, Shubhendu. So आपण actually पुढे जाऊया. As you mentioned, like you can speak Marathi. So आपण पुढे जाऊया. आपण next section start करूया. Okay. So please go ahead.
Okay. So Dr. Nandkishore, he mentioned that I should speak something about IoT. As I mentioned this before briefly, that it's not like I really look forward to working on IoT, but I started my job in Philips Lighting and specifically Philips Hue, and that's a commercial product, and that's how I got to know about IoT. And that's why in this presentation, I just want to speak about the basics of IoT and then use Philips Hue as a case study. And keep in mind that actually we don't have time for details. So I'm just talking about the high level overview of Philips Hue. And of course, Philips Hue, it's a commercial product, so a lot of things are under NDA. So that's the idea, just a disclaimer. So some textbook thing, IoT, this is what IoT is like. This is the Wikipedia definition, that it's a system of interrelated computing devices, and they talk with each other, so they transfer data between themselves. And the third point says that it is without requiring human interaction, or human to human or human to computer interaction. But actually, that's just textbook. Typically, there is always some human interaction. But that's just what textbook says. And what is important to see is that IoT has a very wide range of applications. It's basically computing, but computing everywhere. So a previous name for IoT was ubiquitous computing, and ubiquitous means everywhere, and that's true. So nowadays we have smart farming, smart logistics, smart industries, smart homes, everything that can be smart. And why is it smart? It's just because you are able to share data with different entities, and you can share data, and you can process the data, and you can act on the data. So all of that was always possible, but now in this century, we are actually materializing it. And because of the advancement of chip technology, even the smallest chip can do a lot. So earlier that was not possible, but nowadays you will see with Philips Hue, a Philips Hue lamp can do a lot compared to devices that were there 30 years ago. Now, as I said, I am not an IoT expert, but basically this is the skeleton of IoT, and Philips Hue really fits very well in this. So you have these elements. You have firstly a local network. You are basically your local farm, or your local factory, or your local house, your area, and in that area you have a lot of nodes, which here are shown them as slave nodes, and their purpose is to collect data or actuators. They are basically sensors and actuators, and they may speak with each other, but what empowers them is that actually they talk with a master node, and the master node is slightly more smart. It can, of course, talk with other slave nodes, but it also talks with the internet. And the advantage of the internet now is that virtually you have unlimited data storage. Of course, you have to pay for it, so it's up to your budget. But the other advantage is, because of the internet now, you can also control everything from anywhere in the world. So over here, there are two persons. A person is in the local area and the other person is outside the local area. I mean, for me, I can control my lights even from India when I'm in India, the lights in my house. So that's another thing that the internet enables. But also, you have like millions of entities in the world. So on the commercial aspects, all the, like the smart cameras and smart lights, they all, there's like millions of them, and you can process data from them in the cloud also, because cloud has the big capacity to process data. So typically the name is big data, and that is enabled because you are able to connect with the internet cloud. So that's really a big thing that changed, IoT. The local network was always there, but connecting with the internet, even the small devices, really enables a lot of potential. And the master node, let's go to the points. I already mentioned it collects data from the slaves and then shares with the cloud. But it also can process data itself. So it depends on the application, how much data it wants to process. So, but this is local data, doesn't have to, it cannot actually process big data because this is just one network. And when we are talking about big data, we are talking about millions of devices in the world. Yeah, so this is just the skeleton, and you can use the same skeleton in different scenarios, and a lot of creativity can be done with it. So now let's look at Philips Hue case study. And I'm first going to explain what is Philips Hue, why is it a idea, and of course the most important thing is how does it work. So firstly, what is Philips Hue? So it's actually a commercial product, and you have this thing. I don't know if you see my cursor. Do you see my cursor?
Yes, we see it.
Okay.
We see the pointer.
Okay, the pointer here, this is the bridge, and this is the master node in Philips Hue. And we have lights and accessories. So this is a motion sensor. This is a switch. These are the lamps. So that's like the Hue ecosystem. And we, of course, have the Hue app. So all of these entities are wireless. So the bridge, the switch, lamps, accessories are wireless. And through the app, you can configure them, and you can configure them on demand. But you can also set automation, like when motion is detected, then turn on the light for 10 minutes. That's what I have in my bathroom. So when I enter the room, the light turns on automatically for 10 minutes, and then after 10 minutes it turns off. But of course, if the presence is detected again it will turn on. And you can also set schedules. So for example, when I'm in India, then I set schedules to turn on and off lights randomly in between certain time. And the random part helps to mimic home presence. So for people outside the house, from the window, they will only see the lights turning on in the evening and turning off around 12 o'clock. So it mimics home presence. So that's like a very small feature, but it's helpful. And in fact, there's so much of potential. In fact, Philips Hue is for the European market, it's a very medium product. For the Indian market, it's a very luxury product. But the potential of Philips Hue is a lot, and we are still trying to discover all the potential that we can do with it. But this is a very commercial IoT example. So keep in mind that we are not talking about industrial IoT, which I think there will be a lot of common elements. But from my side, I'll share with you the commercial aspect of it. Now, why is Philips selling this Hue product? Like, what's the advantage? Like, why would customer buy a Philips Hue? So of course the wireless part is fancy, and you can control your lights outside the home. That's fancy, but that's not really the strongest feature. The strongest features are mostly two: ambience and entertainment. So the lamp, there are different types of lamp. There's a white lamp, which is just a light, and that is on and off. But then there is the ambience lamp, and ambience lamp are not color lamps, but they can switch between the warm white and cool white. And warm white actually is suitable to relax the human brain, and you will find this common in European houses. So even I have these lights. So these are like in India, you have this yellow bulb, the traditional old yellow bulb. The warm light is actually helpful for the human brain, to relax it. And that is just science. And the white light is much more to energize the human brain. So that's why often the industrial offices and industrial, not just industrial, but any office will have traditionally white light. That's because it tells the human brain to be awake, and it keeps it running. But actually in Asia we like more the white lights. I remember in my house we have tube lights, so that's the white light. But if you want to sleep in it, yeah, it's actually we are working against the brain signals to to sleep in this white light. But that's just a basic science about the ambience, and it's a big feature. And in India, in Europe, people actually look forward for this. They want to switch their lights from warm to cool when they want. That's a great feature. The other thing is entertainment. So here you can see that these are two hue lights, and they will sync their color based on the TV content. And that's also what Philips Hue enables. This is a bit more luxurious, but actually for European market, it's not that luxurious. People can afford it, and that's just something they can enjoy at home. So these are really two big use cases which are enabled by Philips Hue. Now, how does all of this work? So just as I showed you previously, the IoT skeleton, what we have is the Hue bridge. And actually, I am a Hue bridge engineer. So that's my software actually goes in Hue bridge. The Hue bridge is connected with the home router, and that's actually a wired connection. But then the Hue bridge talks with all the lamps and accessories wirelessly. And that's the Zigbee network. So in the skeleton, I showed you that there are a lot of connections, but these connections can be wired or wireless. So it doesn't matter. It depends on the application. But they are connected. And then you have your app, and the app is free. In the app, here you can see there are different rooms, and the colors over here are reflecting what the light in that room is actually lit at. So this dining room is warm yellow, living room is cool blue, kitchen is some fancy purple and red. Because it's showing purple and red because perhaps there are multiple lights which are actually colored differently. So that's just the room shown here. But the app actually is, if you're at home, you see here Wi-Fi, that means it's actually connected to the router through Wi-Fi. But if you're not at home, and then let's say you have 3G, it can still, because of 3G or 4G, it can still talk with the cloud, and through the cloud, you can still control your entire house with this connection. So that's the idea. That's like just a top view. Now going ahead, I've marked here A and B. So what's that? So the Zigbee network, actually Zigbee technology does a lot of details. I cannot go through all the details, but some key points. It's actually it's a low power, low data rate, but a long range wireless protocol. So it is similar to Wi-Fi. Actually, it is also Wi-Fi range 2.4 gigahertz. But it has a very low data rate. Wi-Fi is a high data rate protocol, and but Zigbee, then that's why it's very suitable for IoT, because low power is important, because here the lamps are actually powered by the AC 230 volts. But for example, this one is just battery powered. The dimmer switch, it's called a dimmer switch. One is on, zero is off, and this is dim up, this is dim down. But you have so many other accessories that are just battery powered. So if it takes too much power to communicate with the bridge, then the battery will run out, and that's not a good quality product. So Zigbee really helps with that it's all low power. That's one important point. But then other than that, what is important is that all these devices, they have capability to save some data state. So they have some non-volatile RAM, something that they can save the state even after powering off. And they are actually smart enough that they can do their own software upgrade. So of course the bridge facilitates that, but all of this is over wireless network. So basically it's actually called OTA. over the air update. So on the wireless signal, it can send the new firmware file and it can upgrade the software of these devices. So, but it doesn't have to be. So I'll mention this later. The local connection. So in Philips Hue, we use the HTTP protocol and REST API. So REST is a RESTful API, which means that when you talk with the master node, you don't have to remember what you had asked before. So basically, REST is stateless, which means you don't assume that there was something asked before, and based on that, some different outcome will come. That's not the case. And actually, REST API is quite popular with the IoT devices because then it simplifies the design, and it in fact it serves its purpose. This API is also the interface with which the system communicates with the world. So they say API is very important. It is the one that will enable controlling of the entire system. So design of this API is very crucial. And in case of Philips Hue, it is also public. It doesn't have to be, but it is public so that even third party can develop apps just like Hue. So what I shown here is a Hue app from Philips, but then there are also other developers in the world who can use this API to communicate with your network. That's possible. Now, coming to the REST API, so I'm showing here an example. So this example is turning a light on with a certain color and certain brightness. And so how does it work? So this is the HTTP URL, and this is the bridge IP that you can just get it in your local network. And /API is just the name of this is the specification. And here you have the whitelist. So what is a whitelist? It's actually like a token. So in IoT, a very important aspect is security. So as I said, if you have the API, anybody can control your system. Now the question is, who do you want to allow? So not anybody should be able to control your lights, So security is very important. So in Hue, we solved it very easily. What we say is, in the first API, you say that I'm a new user and my name is iPhone. You just give some input. And then what you have to do is, we ask you to press this button. So this Philips, what you see here is a button. So the user physically has to press this button. And once the user presses that button in UBridge, we calculate a token and we give it back. And then the app over here gets that token. So this is like a randomly generated token. So you cannot just fake it. It's a 32 characters token, and it's called a whitelist. And once you get it, you can use it for the next APIs. So because the user has to press it physically on that device, that is how we secure that, okay, now that somebody has actually pressed the button, that means the user is actually in the house and he's actually the one who is asking for control. So that's how this random token is generated, and we give it back. And then once the app gets it, then it can use it to do the other communication. And then / this is the device type. It can be lights, sensors, switches. There's so many things in the Philips Hue ecosystem. Then the device ID. So the device ID is basically which light. So every light will get an ID. So right now the IDs are very simple. So if you have, let's say, only 2 lights in your house, they will get 1 and 2. But let's say if you delete this light through some API and you install new lights, then those 2 new lights will get 3 and 4, and then so on. So the numbers will keep on increasing up till I think something like 250 or 50. Sorry, the range is 50 now. And after 50, it will roll back to 1. So basically, we just use normal IDs 1 to 50, and at maximum we can only support 50 lights. So even though we can support more for software, we have to limit it to a number. We say, okay, the user can use only 50 lights. So that's what the ID is. And then what do you want to do? So this is the device attribute. So this is saying that for this light with this state, I want to do a method put. So this is HTTP protocol. So in HTTP, you have put, post, get, delete, a lot of methods. and you say that I want to put this attribute for this slide. So you are saying this is JSON, JavaScript body. On is true, that's Boolean. Saturation, brightness are color attributes, and hue is also color attribute. So all of these fields they are described in the spec. So the spec is defined by Philips Hue, and that's made public. So any developer can read the spec and say, okay, these are the attributes that I can program, and they can configure them, and the method is put, and the light will turn on. So that happens within few like half a second or some milliseconds. So that's also important aspect to know, that what is the latency. And because it's a commercial product, we know that, okay, if you turn on the light over here, and if it takes 5 seconds to turn on the light, it's very annoying. So for customer, it's important that the reaction is fast, but also it doesn't have to be millisecond fast. So that's another aspect, because we are not doing like this is not like a real-time system. It's semi-real time. So that's another aspect. But on the other hand, when you configure it for entertainment, this entertainment over here, then it uses a slightly different protocol, that this color packets, they actually follow something like UDP. So the color packets can be missed, but what is important is that the color packets switch in time. So they have to switch colors fast enough so that they match the content. So that's another protocol. So for now, I just gave here a simple example of the API. There are so many other APIs, but understand that this is how the IoT system is interacting with the world. And it's up to the engineers to define it. So I joined Philips Hue only in 2017, but this API was already developed in 2012. And at that time, they designed, okay, how should it work, and what should be done for security, what should be done for the speed, and so on. So maybe a reminder, this bridge is doing so many things. It's actually talking with the Zigbee network. It's also for the entertainment thing. It will also get the signals from the local router. So what for entertainment, what happens is that we are sharing the content with some API also on the local network, and that reaches here. Here we have multiple processes taking the data. So for entertainment, it's a different daemon. For controlling the light, it's a different daemon. And then, of course, we want software update. I mean, because there are also new features coming in. There are there's so many reasons why you need software update. And for that, the software update comes from the cloud. So Philips Hue rents Google Cloud Services, and perhaps more vendors. So over there, we give the new software update, and it comes to the router, and then the Hue bridge is notified there is an update for these devices, and we also let the user know. The user can choose, does it want auto update, yes or no? And if auto update is yes, then we will automatically connect to this lab. Now, I don't know if you noticed, all of these devices have to be powered on. So that's another aspect of this smart lighting, that these lamps cannot be switched off. If they're switched off, you cannot talk with them. But of course, if they're switched on, that means it doesn't mean the light has to be on. The app and the switch can say off. So that's why this is a smart switch. When you press the button 0 here, it doesn't turn off the electricity. It will only send a Zigbee packet to the bridge, and the bridge will send a Zigbee packet to that lamp that turn off. So all of this is powered on, but it's basically these are just like soft switches. So that's another aspect. So my point was that the bridge actually is doing multiple purposes. There's a software update, there's the light control, there's entertainment, and even more, but I'm just listing a few. So some observations, the slave nodes, like lamps in case of Philips Hue, they need to be able to communicate with master node. That's like the basic requirement. They don't have to do other things, but they have to be able to talk with the master node, apart from sensing and actuating. And the master nodes needs to have at least some sort of web server like capability. It can be the traditional HTTP web server, but it needs that so as to be able to talk with outside world. So this link over here, is only possible because it has a web server that can take requests, and also of course it can talk with the cloud. But that means the master node needs to be smart enough to support that functionality. And yeah, API, as I mentioned, the API that master node provides should be suitable for desired applications. So we are using HTTP. That's because HTTP is a very common protocol. But in case of industrial application, I can imagine that you, of course, for your trade secrets, you don't want the API to be public, but the API should be known within your own, community, within your company employees, within your own developers. So you don't have to stick with HTTP. It can be any other API, but that API should support clear communication. So that's another important aspect. Yeah, I think that was it. So that was a very brief outline of you as you as a case study for IoT. It's a commercial IoT, but it does cover all the relevant aspects of IoT. I can take questions now.
Yes, so can you hear me? Thank you so much, Shubhendu. You actually did a wonderful job of giving an example, so you started with the skeleton of IoT, and then you directly jumped into an example which is a proprietary of your company, and you have been working with them. Philips has a very big name around the world, and you are actually you have worked with them, and you have actually showed one of their product, versatile product, very probably useful, as you mentioned. Probably it could be luxury in India, but it can be a medium product in developed countries and kind of redeveloping countries as well, probably. And here the main point what I see is you actually made the IoT to feel very simple, because many of us, including myself, we kind of actually have attended many sessions who speak on IoT. And number one, you actually made the distinction between something commercial IoT and industrial IoT. So that is actually one aspect that I liked. And the other aspect what I see is so the commercial IoT, you are actually, because you actually gave an example of a product that is actually very kind of to be common in developed countries, and probably to be a potential common product in India as well. And IoT actually now probably it should be very clear for me and probably for many faculties, irrespective of their being mechanical engineers or electrical engineers or instrumentation engineers. And I'm pretty sure that the students from our institute and probably whomsoever will be able to actually see the slides can understand very well what is IoT, and then they can explore many things about it. So thank you so much. I think there are some questions which you can actually see it, in the chat window. Is it visible to you?
No, because I'm sharing my screen, I cannot see the chat. Let me look how to get it.
What you do is actually you go on the bottom portion, or probably I'll start reading the questions. Okay, don't worry. So okay. Number one question is, when working on IoT, so this is coming from a student, Mayuri Kohli. When working on IoT-based project, knowledge of programming is also required. Please tell about how software knowledge will help students who are applying the core companies as well. For example, if they are looking for a job, what kind of software skills they would actually need to learn to actually get into IoT. And then the second question, just make a note. After this COVID-19 pandemic is over, what skill set students should have to get a good job? We heard that many army personnel martyred while serving for nation. How IoTs can help in saving life of them? So this is a great question actually coming from Mayuri Kohli, if IoT can be used to save or to avoid those kind of situations which actually have been happening in the northern state of India, and so not from the political side, but from actually the technology and from from engineering side. If you can comment here, that should be okay. So these are the two questions that are actually available right now, and I'll just go through the chat window on YouTube. And so far there is not any question. So probably we'll actually take these two questions. Maybe you can stop sharing the screen, and maybe you can also have access to the chat. It's up to you.
Okay. Actually, these are great questions. Thank you for that. And I'm actually intentionally not stopping the screen now, because I think the answer lie also in the third part. Uh, that's the title is Common Skills to Learn, because that was the first question, right?
Yes.
I basically let me just already take help of the third part.
And
Uh,
before we continue, I just wanted to mention again, like, so when we started the session, we actually mentioned that Shubhendu Sinha is my like, माझा आत्या भाऊ आहे. So तुम्हाला कोणाला काही क्वेश्चन असेल तर तो आपण परत शुभेंदूला रीच करू शकतो. आणि
नक्की.
सो मी ढवळे सर बोलतोय, डॉक्टर ढवळे फ्रॉम इन्स्टिट्यूट डिपार्टमेंट R&D सेल चे ऍक्च्युली इन्चार्ज. आणि शुभेंदू सिन्हा इज माय कझिन, माझा सख्खा आत्याचा भाऊ, म्हणजे माझे वडील त्याचे मामा आहेत. आणि सो तुम्हाला कधीही काही क्वेश्चन असतील तर तुम्ही कधीही आम्हाला कॉन्टॅक्ट करू शकता. सो आय जस्ट वॉन्टेड टू मेक दिस व्हेरी क्लिअर अँड यू कॅन आन्सर शुभेंदू. सॉरी टू इंटरप्ट यू.
नो प्रॉब्लेम. इंडीड तुम्हाला पाहिजे तेव्हा तुम्ही कॉन्टॅक्ट करू शकता. माझी लिंक्डइन प्रोफाईल माझ्या वेबसाईटवर आहे. आणि ऑफकोर्स डॉक्टर नंदकिशोर त्यांच्या थ्रू पण तुम्ही कॉन्टॅक्ट करू शकता मला. तर to come back to the question, actually it's a very relevant question. So there were two questions. The first one was, how does it help as a software engineer in IoT, or actually as an instrumentation engineer or any engineer with embedded systems. So important thing to understand is that programming knowledge is a must, because no matter if you're doing hardware programming or software programming knowledge will be required. And because you're instrumentation engineer, maybe you're comfortable with C, or you're comfortable with something else, but when you come to talk about IoT and other systems, you have to deal with other languages also. So for example, in Philips Hue, I mostly used to work with C and C++. That's the main language for the key applications. But we do also deal a lot with C#, with Python, and Java. And I learned these languages on the fly. I did not know about these languages before. And it's on the job I learned it. So as an engineer, you are expected to understand the programming concepts. And as soon as you understand the programming concept, switching between languages doesn't take much time. But of course, every language has some additional features, and those additional features, are new. You have never seen them before. It takes time, but it's easier. So that's why, as students, I want you to understand, you have to be flexible and you have to open your mind to all languages. Of course, embedded applications mostly work with efficient languages like C++ or C. But that doesn't mean that that's the only thing you'll be working on. So for example, for testing, we do a lot of testing. That will be in the slides. You will see that. Those are in different languages. And now the culture is, earlier we had the culture, understand this, that there were software developers and then there were software testers. So typically what would happen is, I as a software developer, I would only type in C++, I would write my code, and then I'm done with it. And then the software tester would write a Java code to test that functionality, and he's expert in Java. But that culture is gone now. That culture is really not is not completely gone, but it's not the mainstream now. The culture is, you have to write your own code, and you have to also write your own test for that code. And that means me also, I had to learn C# a little bit to test my code, and I'll explain what kind of testings are there. But as an engineer, you have to be flexible enough that you have to open your mind also for testing. Testing is a big field. That's why test engineer is a separate position, but you have to learn testing also as an engineer. And that is also not enough. You also have to understand web protocol. So normally HTTP REST, that's pretty much relevant for IoT. But there are so many other things in web that actually I'm also still learning. For me, even HTTP, there's so many aspects of HTTP that is new, like the page size and the HTTP request parameters. There's so many things, and I'm learning every day. So the learning never stops. So you have to understand that. The other part of the question was, how can you help in IoT, with IoT, or as an engineer for the COVID pandemic? And it's not an easy question to answer, but I think the most important thing you have to understand is, what are the problems that you want to solve. You really need to understand what is the problem that you want to solve. If you understand the problem, the solution becomes very easy. So you have to, with the pandemic, we have to see what are the problems. Is testing the problem? Is collecting data the problem? Are tracking patients? Is that the problem? You have to understand what problem do you want to solve, and based on that problem, you can come up with some solution, and you can take help of IoT. And IoT is basically a collection of devices that talk with each other and that store data, and also make use of the cloud, where cloud has become very cheap nowadays. I mean, even you yourself can pay a few thousand rupees, and you can rent space on Amazon cloud, and you can do your own website, you can do your own IoT thing. That has become very cheap nowadays. But what is important is to understand what is the problem that you want to solve. So if you cannot understand the problem, then you cannot get the solution. So these are the answer to these two questions.
Okay, so Shubhendu, there is actually one more question here coming from electrical department. Professor Gadgune sir, probably on behalf of some student, or probably it's his own question. I actually lost him. Yeah, I'm getting him again. So, what is the future of PLCs on, or they are going to be replaced by IoTs? I mean, if you can, comment on this.
So you're talking about yeah, PLCs, right? So the thing is, these slave nodes, I think that's where the PLCs will be there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think with the advancement in technologies, nowadays the slave nodes are becoming really smart. So I am not an expert with PLCs, but they, I assume, will not be able to provide as much functionality as much a chip can do. So that's why I think PLCs perhaps are much more used in factories and industries, and they have their own reasons. But with the advancement in technologies nowadays, everything is becoming so smart that you can afford to just buy off the shelf some chip, and that can serve the purpose for you, and it will be affordable, and it will also be it can also talk with the master node, and that's what enables it to become IoT. So that's why I think it's relevant, but maybe the relevance is decreasing, because nowadays small chips can do so much work that it's amazing.
Okay, Shubhendu, I think we'll stop this. We'll stop this part of the session. It's already like 3:39. Like we have been almost 1 hour 40 minutes. We were planning for the session in 1 hour 15 minutes. So we are still probably 2 parts behind, or 3 parts behind. So probably if you want to take a break, or if you want to just continue with the third part.
I think my third part is small, so I can continue. And in fact, I don't have this third part. There's not as many slides. And actually, then please excuse me. I'm on purpose taking enough time to explain my points, so that we don't miss the details.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. But we don't have any problem if the session is going long, because we are having a recording, so people can always watch it at a later time. But I just wanted to bring this point.
Yeah. So let's start with the third part, and this is industrial programming. And I think so. This is something. These topics that I'm mentioning here is something that I myself, as an undergraduate, I did not know about as much, and maybe I was just naive, but also that was not the culture then. But now I hope the undergraduate should understand this concept. The first point is, as I said already, and we discussed it, programming knowledge is must. You have to program in any case. You have to learn the programming basics. And I remember nowadays that I was discussing with Dr. Nankishore that like in undergraduate studies in my ENTC course, we used to study hashing and database algorithms and so on. And after that, I didn't get to use them, but in Philips Hue, I'm using them again. So concept like hashing is so important. So all these small concepts that you learn in undergraduate studies, they will come back to you. So don't ignore them. Understand the purpose behind them. So that's about this. The other thing is version control management. I'm not aware if the students are aware of this part, like tools like Git. So let me assume that students are not aware, and that's why this is important. So version control management is just like managing your code. So you will learn this the hard way if you do not know about this. So for example, you are making a project, okay? and you're making a project about some, like automated farming, and then you are doing some code for automated, watering of the plants. And then you write code for your sensor, for your processor, and then you find a mistake. And then again, okay, you correct the mistake, and you go further, and you say, you realize, okay, actually I need much more. And then again you will correct it, and then you realize, actually, yeah, the version that I worked on 2 days ago was the better version, and now you don't remember how you did it. If you have saved it, let's say you say program 1.cpp, then program 2.cpp, program 3.cpp, you have to do all this management, which is so cumbersome and so ugly. You will forget, what you're doing. And of course, this is just for your small, bachelor's project. If you're talking about commercial application, it's stupid. You cannot manage all of that versioning. So that's why we have version control management, and it's basically these are tools that capture the state of your file, capture the state of your code. It can be actually any file, even binary files, but also your code text files. And every time you do a change, you can commit something. And so that's why, if you see my cursor, this is like a commit highlighted, and there are different commits. And in each commit, you do something concrete. For example, here this guy added 2 lines, so that's why it's green, shown as green, and he removed some lines, so the red lines are removed. So he's working on some algorithm, and for whatever reason, he decided to add these lines and remove these lines, and he, uh, achieved his work. So it can be anything that you want it to be. And then when you think, okay, this is good enough, you commit it, and then a record is made, and that's how what all these commits are. But actually, it's like there are multiple lines, and each line is like a branch. It's called a branch, and each dot is a commit. So when you see multiple lines, that means there were multiple people working on multiple parts of the code, and they can do their own bit. So that's something even greater, that now multiple people can work on different parts of the software. And when you see the lines are merging, that's called like a merging of branches. That means the piece of functionality from developer A and developer B are combined. So together with a team, you can uh, work on a complex project. So, and then now the advantage is that, let's say you remember that actually the thing that I did on this commit is useful, or you can reuse it, or you want to go back to it because you made mistakes. Then you can easily say that, okay, right click on this. This is just like a commercial tool. You have also command line things for it. You say that go back to this commit. So there are so many possibilities. So learning version control management is a must, and it helps in your project, and it is any project. It can be your master's project, your bachelor project, but also, of course, big companies like Google, Amazon, they all use it in different ways. So all of the Linux kernel is managed by Git, and Git is actually a tool that was developed by Linus Torvalds, the inventor of Linux. So he found it so important that after Linux, the biggest invention he made was Git. Git is like the most efficient software for version control. And what is important to note here is that all of these tools are for free. We have so many open source tools. So that's why students should never complain that, okay, because I want to do it nicely, I need to wait, I need to pay money for it. No, it's all free. You can just pick up a Git software and start writing a project, and writing code yourself, and it's free. So that's a great thing. Now, testing, as I mentioned multiple times before, testing is very important. And even if you are a instrumentation engineer, or embedded engineer, no matter what type of engineer you are, you will have to do testing in industry, because testing is important for a number of reasons. The first reason is that you don't want to break old functionality. So that's why, like, unit testing is something important. Like unit testing is done on the unit function, and you keep testing even if you're not writing new code on that part, just because functionality may depend on something else, and you don't want to break some old functionality, because it happens. Sometimes you add new feature and you don't see it immediately, but because of feature X, feature Y starts breaking, and you do not know why. Actually, you don't even notice it until it goes out to the market. So to prevent that, you need to test. And then there are different levels of testing. So unit testing is like on the lowest level. So for example, you write a function average temperature for a day, and it calculates a temperature for that day, average temperature. So what you do is you write a test and you give some sample input like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you check is if the function is returning the correct average. So it feels silly, but it's very important because there can be complex functions, and those functions may start to break after some time if you don't keep an eye on it. Then component testing is a bit higher level. So you are going to test not just the units, but the entire component, or actually part or whole of the node. So for example, is your sensor sending the data packets correctly, to the master node? So that means actually is using a lot of functions, a lot of device drivers, a lot of small subcomponents. But at that level, you want to ensure that, yeah, that indeed my sensor is actually sending the correct data. And that's why when you're debugging, you know that this is not the faulty part, the fault lies somewhere else. So you have to do test at the component level. And subsystem is like, it comprises of multiple components. So for example, if there's a watering pump and it waters for a certain described amount, so you want to ensure that, okay, if I have done this, let me test it, that let's say it should water 10 liters of water, and then you test it. So it's a physical test. It can also be automated. So with hardware, there might be more difficulties, but with software, it's very easy. You can just automate them. And that's what we do. So whenever we write a new feature, everything is automated. As soon as we commit that code, the testing starts, and the testing will test all the old functionality and new functionality for that subsystem. And there is, of course, system level testing. So that is, let's say if you're talking about automated, farming, and then you want to check if that system is working for a hot day. So you artificially set the room to a higher temperature with some, I don't know, radiator or whatever, and you test if the system is actually working as expected for that hot day, based on the, prescription. And prescription, you mean hot day is what? So 30 degrees, 35 degrees, you have to describe it, and you have to test for it. And then you have verified that it does work for that hot day. So what is important to know is that you have all different levels of testing, but unit testing is the most. So you will always do it for every functionality. Component testing is only on component level. So it is a bit less than unit one testing. And subsystem is even less. And system level, you would only do it for when you know that you're done with the entire design. So all these levels are like, they are in decreasing order. So the most testing is at unit level, component is at lesser level, and so on. And system level is the lowest, because you can only test so many scenarios, that there are only few scenarios, in which you want to test your system. But you have to understand all these levels, and you have to actually use them. Otherwise, you will make a system that is of poor quality. So as students, you have to understand the testing aspects. Now, I think this is the last one. It's code quality. So code quality feels very minor, but it is very important at the industrial level. And code quality, there are a number of aspects, and I'm here touching only few aspects. So for example, code checkers. So when you write code, there are code checkers that you can use, and then they check for various things. So of course, the checkers are language specific. For C, C++, you have a different checker, but if you go for a Python, you have a different checker. If you go for Java, you have a different checker. And then they check what? So for example, they can check for dead code that, is never going to be reached. And if that is the case, why write space, why write that code? Because you, as an embedded engineer, you realize that you want to be efficient. And if you're going to, if you can save a few bytes or a few kilobytes with that unreachable code, why not? So in fact, sometimes you have to. Sometimes you run out of memory, and then you do a check and you say, oh, actually there are like 2 kilobytes of code that is just unreachable. So you can easily remove it, and then you gain space. It's important to understand that, and actually you don't do it manually. So nowadays these checkers are smart, and they actually go through your code, and they themselves show you, they give you a warning, this code that you have written is unreachable. And that's why, yeah, it helps in optimizing code. And debugging is a big pain, always a pain. Like for example, memory leakages happens. I hope students are aware what memory leakage means. You allocate memory and you forget to free it, and then you run out of memory. So that happens often. So you have to, of course, write good code, but then sometimes you may miss it. But that's why these checkers will warn you that you are actually allocating memory here, but you're not freeing it. And on the other hand, nowadays code has become so smart. For example, in C++, you have smart pointers where the code itself will free it for you. So you just have to use it in your space. And as soon as the work is done, the compiler will generate extra code to free up that pointer. So nowadays, all of these new features are coming, and I'm saying nowadays, but this is like a feature from 15 years. Smart pointer is already there from 2011 actually. And of course, all of this is like, you don't have to do it manually. There are like IDEs, integrated development environment editors, and they support this feature. So Eclipse IDE is a free one. So I think students should practice it. They should use Eclipse and use all of the features in Eclipse to check the code, the project code, or get hang of it. Now the other thing is coding guidelines. Coding guidelines, of course, depend on the language. And here I've given a link for C++. And in fact, in Philips Hue, we follow the Google coding guideline. And guideline is basically how should the variable name look like? How should the function name look like? How much space should you give after a bracket? How many lines should be, empty after a function? And all of this feels very unnecessary. Like, yeah, who cares? The code works, and then it's fine. But actually, there are advantages why coding guidelines are enforced. So, firstly, yeah, the code is readable because it all looks neat and tidy. But also because that, for example, in Google coding guideline, variable names are lowercase, and the function name is like this. Then when you are going through the code and when you see some text, immediately this is a variable. So while debugging, you know that actually, okay, this is a variable and that is an object, then this should happen. So you can immediately start thinking about the code easily. So readability is very important. And why? Because it's not you. In industry, important to understand, you're not the only person who is going to read code. It's other developers will be reading your code, and they need to understand your code. So it's a very big deal, because it's not like the code works, the functionality works, and you're done. No, that doesn't work. The code needs to improve. The code has its own lifetime. The code eventually will be extended. It may be deleted, and that will be done by other developers. They need to understand your code. So the readability is very important. And not just that, but yourself. So it will happen to you that you will you're reading some code and you don't understand it, and then you look at the Git, the version tool, and you say, okay, who wrote this code? And you will find out that you wrote this code a year ago, and you will be surprised that you're not understanding yourself. Of course, you cannot remember the code. So even for yourself, readability is important. You need to understand your own code that you wrote a year ago or 6 months ago, whatever it is. So reading code is a big part, and you need to understand it to debug. Debugging takes up, like, let's say, 1/3 of your time in engineering. So readability is very important. So these are some of the points. I think that's the end of the presentation.
Yes. So thank you, point here. So the meeting time is started at like around 2, and it's already 3:55. And because when I actually created the meeting on Zoom, I think I assigned like 2 hours, so probably the meeting could stop suddenly.
Yeah.
I'm not aware about that situation. So maybe if we want to finish up, like, maybe we can do the vote of thanks, and
I'm done. So I think
we can do the vote of thanks, and probably maybe if our principal sir again wants to interact with you, and probably our HOD and maybe other faculties. So we have like around 3 or 4 minutes from now. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So HOD Instro, are you available? Any questions about this? Maybe you can reach again me or Shubhendu or our instrumentation department.
Yes. Just a minute, sir. There is one of the question from Professor Vani, sir. Does the Netherlands provide any scholarship to outside candidates who are willing to pursue the PhDs?
So this question was actually asked before, and he has already answered it.
Okay, then
There was a question actually by Hargode sir and Kumbhochkar sir, who are our deans of our institute. So one question was what is the relevance of IIT for students pursuing mechanical engineering? And the other question was what is approximately average expenses to pursue PG, and is there assistance from institute? So probably the second question was already answered before. If you wanna talk about the first question briefly, it's fine, but we have only 2 or 3 minutes.
You're talking about mechanical engineer with IoT?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think you have to understand the basics of programming. So as a mechanical engineer, you will deal with IoT in some way. I remember in my research, the auto world, they have a lot of electronics in them, and there are numerous reasons why you need to understand it. So that's why it's better if you get the basics of programming, basics of IoT. Actually, IoT is a very vague word, basically embedded systems. So you need to understand basics of embedded systems in any case.
Yes, so to answer this question, actually in Pvpit, we have an e-Yantra lab sponsored by, not sponsored, it is actually kind of bought by Pvpit. It is supported by IT Bombay. So we have an e-Yantra program, which is actually all about embedded systems, lab for embedded systems, using the robotic approach. So any mechanical student or any other student from our institute, if they want to actually learn something like that, they can contact Professor A.P. Shinde sir from Electronics Department and Hargode sir from Mechanical Department, Gargune sir from Electrical Department, and myself. So we have that platform in our institute. So I think maybe I request my HOD to actually express his thoughts about this session, or even our principal sir if he wants to express some thoughts about this session, and then we'll conduct the vote of thanks and conclude the session. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a very nice session, and I really thank Mr. Shubhendu for giving his time and nicely explaining what are the basic fundamentals of IoT and the right skills which may be required if somebody wants to work in IoT field. So really, it was a very good session, and I am confident that our students might have been really got from this session. And I wanted to ask you that you're working as a bridge engineer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is to be connected. It is having wired connection. It must be wired, or it can be wireless also.
Yeah. So that's a good question. The U bridge connects to the router as a wired connection, but it talks wireless Zigbee with the lights. And the U bridge can also talk wirelessly with the router with Wi-Fi. But on purpose, it is not the case, because we want to avoid interference between Zigbee and Wi-Fi. So we limited it to wired connection. That's one aspect of it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm going to share my slides with Dr. Nand Kishore, and he can share with the students. So I'll give this PPT to him.
Okay, so Karade sir, would you like to express your thoughts about the session, or you're actually asking bringing up Patil Madam to actually express a vote of thanks?
Yes, sir. I'm giving a vote of thanks right now. Karade sir?
Yes, okay.
Hello. Okay. It gives me great honor and privilege to propose vote of thanks on this event. I am grateful to our guest Shubhendu Sinha sir, who despite his busy schedule had time to grace this occasion. Thank you, sir, for sharing your views, experiences, and all this knowledgeable talk. Once again, I thank you on behalf of Pvpit family and also from Instrumentation Department. Above all, I thank you all faculty members, students, as your participation has made this session successful event. I believe that this lecture has certainly provided you as insight into the personality development. After this session, it is expected that whenever you will be dealing in your personal and professional life, this exposure will help you to formulate the policy with the angle of fair competition and great success. Last but not least, I thank you all HODs, Dean Academics, Dean R&D, our principal sir, Dr. D.V. Gevde sir, and Honorable Trustee, Amit Dada for providing support for this lecture. Thank you one and all.
Thank you.
Shubhendu. Okay, let us have some more interactions afterwards.
Yes, yes, sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll be in touch with each other and work together for future endeavors. We'll
Yeah.
share you our
Yes,
future endeavors, and you can be part of it.
definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
it
you,
was my
Shubhendu.
pleasure.
I'll get back
Thank
to
you.
you on WhatsApp call actually, like in a short, so I'm actually stopping. I'm ending the session. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone,
Thank
thank you so much.
Shubhendu sir.